So Max, how did you enjoy this concept of spending $20 on games for the podcast?
It was actually pretty fun. I don't think I've ever went like into a buying spree like that, just being focused on hitting a certain amount and just picking up whatever felt right. But the main problem, I went on Steam for my challenge. I browsed through the new releases on Steam, but man, there's so much crap being released on Steam, and I did not have my adult filter off, so my list was just full of barely games made by a couple guys, full of porn games, and so many clones of popular games. Like I would see something that, oh yeah, that looks pretty cool, and then I click on it, and I'm like, yeah, I've already played Vampire Survivors. I've already played Little Company. Like, come on, guys, just have a little bit of originality. There was one that looked pretty good, but it was so freaking close to Little Company. Like, it was the same running animation and everything. And I was like, I don't really want to encourage blatant copies. So yeah, but amidst all of that, I think I found a couple gems. It was pretty cool, and yeah, I went with the feeling, and mostly it was positive, I would say.
Yeah, I've seen that same thing in Steam recently because I recently bought this new PC so I can actually play games from Steam now, and I've been looking through like the Steam sale recently. Not for this episode in particular, but there's just a lot of stuff where I'm like I don't really have much interest as much as I'd like playing, crappy games. There seems to be a lot of stuff on Steam that is worse than what I am even willing to handle.
Yeah, exactly. Like blatant cash grabs or people just throwing stuff on Steam, hoping to make a quick buck. And you can feel when there's no real passion being put in a game.
Right. So for me, I did a stream over on my Twitch page where, and I've done this plenty of times in the past, where I just went on the PlayStation Store and I just start scrolling through the sale and I just watch trailers and I look at games and I add games to my cart, take games out of my cart. And it's always fun, like getting interaction from the chat and having them suggest me games and being able to be like, hey, have any of you ever heard of this weird thing before? Um, so yeah, it was a lot of fun doing that part of it, and then it was still a lot of fun playing most of the games that I bought. Some of them I was not a huge fan of, which is unfortunate. So in our last episode where I shit on Sega CD games for like 45 minutes straight, I don't like shitting on games like that, you know?
Yeah.
I want to be positive, but sometimes games are just not good. And
Yeah, that's also fine. When it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You have to say it.
yeah. So I guess welcome to the Trash Station Podcast, your gaming podcast all about the weird, unknown, and forgotten video games. I am your host, Chris, also known as Scotch and Hobbies on the internet, and I'm here with my co-host, Max, also known
Hi,
as Proto
Chris.
Max.
Yeah. Hi, Chris. In our friend circle, we're known to play kind of trashy games. We're talking about anime games, retro games you've never heard of, the India stuff on itch.io, and everything in between.
And as usual, we'll add those games to our tier list we call the Landfill, chat about our creative hobbies, and shout out some of our favorite content creators on the internet. And we certainly have a landfill of games to talk about today.
Oh boy, we don't have as many games as the Sega CD episode, but we still have a pretty decent chunk of games.
Yeah. So I ended up buying a total of 10 games
Oh, wow.
on the PlayStation Network, all of them for about between like $1 and $3, totaling up to 21, I think $21 and some change. And the first one that I want to talk about is one that you said that you had heard of in my stream, which is called Infini.
Yeah.
It's a very strange, esoteric puzzle game. Where the story, I couldn't quite fully make sense of it. I believe you're playing as the personification of the idea of hope, and the other characters that you talk to within this game are also the personification of other concepts. So, like, you talk to somebody who's technology, you talk to somebody who's the concept of time, somebody who's the concept of reality, of war. And the game's art style is what drew me to it in the trailer. And I was like, I have to buy this. This game looks incredible. And I was mostly right. I think this game is very, very interesting. The core concept of it is that it's a puzzle game. And your character is essentially endlessly falling. But if you pass through the bottom of the screen, you'll reappear at the top of the screen. And if you go off the right side of the screen, you'll reappear on the left side of the screen. And so you're trying to find your way through mazes, essentially, and to figure out how to get to an end goal in each one of these stages. And there's like walls blocking your path. And if you run into any of those walls, you will fail and have to restart the puzzle level. So it's split up into many different worlds. I think there's 10 total, and I've only played 5 of them so far. But I got the platinum after playing through 3 of them, which was kind of strange.
Yeah. You said that, and after that you said, oh yeah, I still have some games to play, and I was like, wow, what the hell? That's not usually how it works.
Yeah. So some games on the PlayStation Network tend to do that. It's kind of weird. So there was another game that I played. Sorry, I was trying to think of the name of the game. Metagal. There's a game called Metagal that is a Mega Man clone. Like, it plays exactly like Mega Man, and you get the platinum trophy after beating the first level of that game, but then you still have 7 more ninja masters that are robot masters that you have to go and fight, which was bizarre. Like,
Yeah.
why would you not just put the platinum after like beating the whole game?
I guess it's a trophy bait for people who are into trophies. Like, oh yeah, let's get the quick platinum, and maybe people will just buy the game for that.
Right. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Infini. So each of the different worlds adds a different twist onto how the puzzles are solved. So when you go into the second world, you can zoom in and out of your field of view. Or, well, you can only zoom out your field of view. So you start zoomed in really close to your character. And as you move through the level, you can zoom out your field of view, and that changes where the perspective of what you're looking at is. So what you might have to do is like move all the way to the right side of the stage, zoom out your field of view a little bit so that the right side, or so that like there's a wall on the left side, and it'll kind of move inwards towards you as you zoom out, and then you'll be able to move through the right side of the screen to the left side of the screen to get past that wall that was blocking your way to get to the exit of the level. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And your character, does it stay the same size, or does it also zoom in and out?
It as you zoom the camera out, he gets smaller.
Okay.
And then the third level, you now have wings, so you can fly up or hover in place instead of just falling constantly. So that adds another layer of, how do I solve this puzzle? How do I get, like, in those instances, there would be many of the levels where like you have to fly up through the top to be able to come up into a different path along the bottom. It's such a strange game, and it's really cool. I was really enjoying it. I got stuck at a couple of the puzzles in the 5th world, and I didn't want to look up solutions. So I just kind of stopped there, and I haven't quite gone back to it. But I really, really enjoyed this game. I think this is one that people should check out just because it's so weird.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I said that I knew about this game because, if I'm not mistaken, this game has been developed in Montreal, and I know a lot about gaming in Quebec. It's kind of my thing on YouTube, and all of their games have this weird vibe. I think Infini is their most well-known game, but they have a bunch of smaller games with exactly the same visual style, like crude drawings, weird stuff going on. And if I'm not mistaken, they receive quite a bit of funding from the government to make those games, which is kind of wild because when you look at this, you're like, oh yeah, the government decided to invest in this. It's so weird, but yeah, it's a fun studio. They have a very unique style.
What's the name of the studio? I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry. Do you know?
Barnack Studio. It's really on a swear word in Quebec, tabernac, like the tabernacle from the church. Yep, yeah. It's something that a lot of people in Quebec do. They just use like crude words and stuff to brand themselves. I don't really understand why, but it happens really often.
All right, interesting. So yeah, I really enjoyed my time with this game. I think it's really good. I think it's definitely worth checking out. I'm going to put it in our A tier. I think it's a great game.
Sweet. I think it's totally deserved. It looks such like an interesting concept.
It is. I want to say I have played another game that did something kind of similar. There's another small indie game that I played on PSN a couple of years ago called Four-Sided Fantasy, and that one was a puzzle platformer where you were moving your character, across platforming levels to try and get to an end goal within a level, and you could move through if you move through the right-hand side, you appeared on the left, and same kind of idea, just in a platformer. I think that game was actually really cool also. And it's another one that I don't think many people know about, so I just wanted to shout that game out real quick, even though it's not one that I actually played for this episode.
Cool. Okay, on my hand, as a bit of statistics, my whole endeavor cost me $21.49, which was about $30 in Canadian dollars. My most expensive game costs me $4, and my cheapest game was $1.10.
Okay.
And the first game, I bought 7 games, by the way, so a bit less than you. But I played them all, and they're mostly good. So the first game I played is called Jelly Wave. It's a 3D platformer in the style. What could I compare it? I played Lunistis earlier this year, and visually it's very similar. It's kind of corridor-based 3D platformer. You collect stuff along the way, and it's really like PlayStation graphics. Like you see that the vertices are kind of moving as you go along, and all the textures are very pixelated. More like the PlayStation games and not like the N64 where all the texture are kind of blurry. It's really more pixelated. And basically the game is you're playing as this kind of lizard thing that can extend their arm. And the whole mechanic, the whole unique thing is that you have to swing using both your arms, kind of Spider-Man style in shortish 3D levels. Like the first level, if you speed run it, I think you can do it under like 10 seconds or something. But the game is fucking jank. I almost quit after the first level. I had the most difficult time understanding the swinging mechanic. And after beating the game, I'm not sure I fully understand it either.
Wow.
So at first I played with the game with my gamepad, my controller, but the game is just super precise. You have to aim your arms to swing. So if you want to swing through a branch on the tree, you have to physically move your cursor like your like in an FPS, like your target on the middle of the screen, directly to that branch, but at the same time you're jumping and falling. So with the right stick, it was completely unusable, and I'm not used to play 3D platformers with a keyboard, so I went with like a dual style of controller. So I use my controller on my left hand to move and jump with the left trigger, and I use my mouse to aim and use the left click and right click to use the arms to swing around. So that was
Interesting.
already much better. But still, the first two levels took me like 10 minutes each, and it's so simple. You just have to aim and kind of give yourself a boost forward to then grab the other apple, because you have to target apples to swing in the branches. They're like the big targets. But everything is just so fucking precise. And if you just go forward when you're swinging, you will not have enough momentum to reach the next branch. So the way you actually have to play the game is like, you swing, you grab on the thing, you move backwards with your left stick to kind of give yourself like you're using an elastic and rubbing it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go forward and you have to let go at the exact right time to have enough momentum to reach the next part. And like those first two levels took me just a bunch of time of dying at the same place, just trying to reach the next target forward. It seems so simple, but I don't know. It took me such a long time to get. And then I was kind of getting in the groove. Okay, I'm figuring out the controls, and even if everything is so janky, the swinging mechanic is still pretty satisfying. Like you're swinging from left to right, up and down. There's a feeling of speed that's pretty fun. But then I hit two levels that took me 1 hour each. And the game, they're asking for you to play exactly like the developer wants. It's super precise. The platforms are always like a tiny bit farther away than you would do with just an okay jump, an okay swing. You have to be perfect in every step of the way. And at the end, I managed to beat those levels, but it didn't feel rewarding. It just feels like, dang, I'm finally done. I'm never touching those levels again. But the back half of the game is much, much easier. I don't know if it's just because I was better at the mechanic. I think that played into it. But those this back half is a lot more vertical and less going forward. And when you're going vertical, the game is so much easier because you just have to grab on the thing, swing down, swing up, and then you get a big jump, and you have the time to place yourself and target yourself much better than trying to move forward and click on a tiny target when you're going forward at 1,000 speed. So, yeah, overall, it was excruciating. It was pretty hard. I tried that first level again when I was done, and yeah, it was much easier. I could beat that level in like 24 seconds when the first time it took me like 7 minutes. So I think there's a pretty steep learning curve. I'm not sure it's a great learning curve though. It's like most of the levels, I feel like I cheesed them. I just found a way that was easy for me. And yeah, there are some targets that are so small. Like, I don't understand why everything has to be so precise. There are orbs that you have to jump into, and when you're jumping into, you're like teleported a bit farther in the level. But like around the orb there are like metal things, and you can somehow go through the ball, the orb, and the metal thing. Like I'm inside the target and it still doesn't work. I don't fucking understand.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, one thing I want to say, I would love to see Blink from the Polykill podcast try this game. He's like a dozen times better than me at 3D platformers. So I feel like he loves Jack. I think he would really get a kick out of this game, and I would like to see someone beat the game in a more timely fashion than me. I think it would be pretty interesting. And yeah, there you get a couple new mechanics throughout the game, like high jump, double jump, and all of that also helps on making the game better and easier.
Mhm.
As for the tier list, I think I'm gonna go in. This is fine. It's a low.
Really?
It's fine. I feel like I managed to beat the game. Like I don't know. I have a little being a game like made by a single guy, and I can feel the passion. The music is good. The movement feels good. When once you've gotten around the edges, I think I just have a little soft spot in having conquered this game that I would feel bad putting it in almost trash. I think if you're into 3D platformers and have the patience to learn the mechanics, it's kind of enjoyable. Like that back half was so much faster to beat than the first half, and I was having fun trying to find all those cheese sections. I just wish everything was a little bit easier. That's all I asked. Like make those targets a little bit bigger, make those hitboxes a little bit bigger, and make everything a bit closer to each other, and it would be like pretty fun. Right now, I would say it's barely fun.
Okay. I expected you to throw it right into the trash the way you were talking about it, so I was a little surprised by where you're placing it.
Yeah, I think that like that last hour of the game made it back. It turned it around. But yeah, yesterday I was pretty frustrated.
All right. So next game I want to talk about is called Ganryu 2. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. If I got my information correct, this was originally a Neo Geo arcade cabinet. The first Ganryu, and then it was also released for the Dreamcast in 1999. This game came out in 2022, and it's basically a Shinobi 3 clone. If you ever played Shinobi 3 for Sega Genesis, it plays almost exactly like that game.
Okay.
So it is an action platformer where you are a samurai, you have a sword, and you have kunai that you can throw at your enemies, and all of your enemies are other ninjas and samurai and people with swords, and you're fighting your way forward from left to right through a level and trying to get to a boss at the end. So it's got your normal moveset. You walk, you can run by double tapping to run forward, wall jump, double jump, all the normal stuff that you would expect in an action platformer like this. And then you also have an air dash, which is pretty cool. So the problem with the air dash I found though is that it is for like a set distance. So sometimes if you're in the air and you do that dash, you can completely bypass a platform that you were trying to land on because it goes a little bit longer than you think it's going to, and then you either fall into a pit or fall onto a pit of spikes or something like that and take damage. So it can be a little frustrating getting used to the distance in which that air dash actually happens. And then there's also quite a bit of cooldown frames after that air dash. So You can also use that dash to like charge into enemies to basically like shoulder check them and kill enemies. But if they're just a little bit too far away, you have quite a few cooldown frames after doing that. And if you're right in front of them, they might walk into you and hit you, or swing their sword and hit you. So that could be kind of a pain also. Still, with the learning curve of just how far that move actually happens. Or yeah, I guess that's the way to put it. So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty standard ninja action game, and it's very punishing. Like, this game is very challenging. You have 5 hit points and 5 lives to get through each of 5 levels, and each of the 5 levels are split up into 2 stages. So you start in where I have notes here.
I'm looking at a trailer right now, and it looks really good. It's like really polished.
Oh,
it's in bit action platformer.
Yes, it's extremely polished. It's a great looking game. If you're familiar with like Neo Geo pixel art, like they were the masters of just the best looking sprites you will see in video games, probably anywhere, and this game is no exception. It's a stunning looking game, and it is a lot of fun. It's just really, really hard. I thought I had the names of the levels written down, but I don't. But you essentially start at the northernmost part of Japan, and you're working your way through to the southern islands of Japan, and each one of the levels is associated with like a different region of Japan. So like that was cool, but each of the levels is about like 10 minutes long if you're playing casually. And like I said, you only have 5 lives, and it's a very punishing, challenging game. So you have to play through 2 10-minute long levels, or 2 10-minute long stages, essentially, to then finish level 1. And then once you've beaten level 1, you never have to go back to that one. You will always start back at level 2, which is a nice quality of life thing, to where they're not like, an old Sega game where you actually have to start back at the actual beginning of the game again. Yeah, so they also they change up the gameplay with some of the boss levels also. So at the end of the second level, the boss was a shoot 'em up stage, which was pretty cool. So like you're on some kind of mech airship type thing, and you're in a fairly simple shoot 'em up level. And then at the end of the third level, it's basically an auto runner. So in Shinobi 3, there's a couple levels where like you're just running along the ground, and enemies are coming towards you, and obstacles are coming towards you on the ground. It's a level like that. And then I cannot beat the 4th stage of this game, because the start of the 4th level is one of my least favorite types of levels in an action platformer, and that's a falling rocks level where you have to jump between platforms, and if you miss one of those jumps, you die and you have to restart.
Yeah.
And it's the worst level in Shinobi 3. That's level 6 in Shinobi 3. It's the worst level in that game. And it's the worst level in this game. I've beat my head against this wall for like 2 hours trying to get through this one level, and I just can't do it. Like, either my jumps are just a little bit too short, or I end up going just a little bit too far and I miss the tiny platform that I need to land on, or I go to make the jump and like another rock is coming down from the top of the screen, and I accidentally bump into that platform, so that halts my momentum forward to be able to get to the platform that I'm trying to get to. Like, it's just frustrating, and I don't like that style of level.
Yeah, and is it also like a 10 minutes thing?
I don't know. I don't know how long it is, because I didn't watch a video to see how long it is, but I mean, I probably survived for maybe 2 minutes in that level and hadn't gotten to the end of that portion. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna go back to this game, because it's I want to. I loved everything about it up until this stage.
Oh no.
And
And like it's saved. So if you boot it back up, do you restart at that 4th level, or do you have to start back from? Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I can just try that level as many times as I want, and I just can't seem to get through it. So
Yeah, I get it.
somebody better than me, I'm sure, can beat this game. I imagine that speedruns of this game are really slick because you can go very, very fast. Like your run animation is extremely quick. I don't have much else to say about this. Like it's a Neo Geo Samurai game. Like if you're into that, you'll know that you'll be into this. So
yeah,
I'm gonna put this in this is fine because of the challenge. Had I not gotten stuck and had I actually been able to beat this game, or at least get to the final boss of the game, I would probably bump it up, maybe even to like absolute banger, because those first 3 levels, while they were hard, they weren't impossible, and spending a little bit of time with them, I was still able to break through the challenge and beat them. But yeah, for right now, it goes in this is fine.
Yeah, I get it. Sometimes the games are just unfair.
Yeah.
Speaking of unfair, I have the worst game of the day to talk about. It's called, but I believe, I don't know what you played, but I'm pretty sure it's the worst. It's called Ultra Cup. It's a 90s style first person shooter. It looks a bit like Quake in terms of 3D graphics and everything. It doesn't play like Quake, but if you want an idea, you're playing a cup and you're shooting bad guys. They're human and they have that 90s blocky photographic style of their head.
Mm-hmm.
But and already at first I thought the game didn't work. I plugged in my controller. I was trying to start the first mission, wasn't working. So I was trying with my keyboard, wasn't working. I tried a bunch of stuff. I was this close to just ask for a refund when I actually understood that you had to use your mouse and click on the button to make it start. Wow. So the game is fully playable with your controller, but you cannot use the menus with the controller. But anyway, I started the first mission. It's so fucking weird. It starts as a third-person shooter, but you can switch into a first-person mode, and it plays like a cover shooter, but there's no cover. I don't get it. There's so many enemies. There's dozens and dozens of enemies everywhere, and as soon as they see you, you're getting gunned down. Like no questions asked. You're in their line of sight. They will shoot you. You won't know where they are. They may be like a mile away in a building, almost behind the cover. They will shoot you because they see you and you're losing life and you don't know why. There's barely any health pickups. And yeah, the game is just fucking impossible. There's you kind of have 3 lives. Actually, you have a single life, but you can use a mech suit to gun everything down. But there are so many enemies, it will get destroyed in like a minute or two. Then you can use a car where you go super fast and you can shoot everything with the car, but same thing, it will get destroyed as soon as you get 12 enemies shooting at you at the same time. And then you have your main character. You can pick up a couple different type of guns, but it doesn't matter because you cannot cover. So you just have to be in the line of sight of everyone and hope for the best. There's 3 different objectives in that first level. Rescue some sexy women, and they're dressed sexy, but it's a 90s graphic, so whatever.
So kind of like Duke Nukem.
Yeah, exactly that style, like sexy bikinis and everything. Those are the the girls you have to save. You have to destroy some cars, and I don't remember the last objectives, but I couldn't even finish a single objective in that first mission. I tried, I think, for an hour over and over and over. There's nothing, nothing you can do. I managed to. The map is like sectioned in 4 different missions, if you want, like 4 different hot zones with a lot of enemies. I managed to complete 2, but once you're dead, and you have to start everything back from the beginning. So, yeah, I close the game and I'm never touching it again. It's fucking impossible. Man, I didn't talk about the music. The music is the most irritating music you can think of. It's just like very heavy dance music, super aggressive. It doesn't really fit the vibe, and it just irritating from top to bottom. If only there was like half the enemies, maybe the game would be playable. But in the current state, the game, it's just impossible. It's going back in the trash. There's nothing to do with this. I didn't try the other missions, but if I'm not able to even beat the first one, I don't have a lot of hope for the rest.
All right. Get it out of here. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, but it was my my least expensive game to it. It only cost $1, so at least I only wasted $1 on this.
Yeah. So let's keep the negativity rolling for a minute, and I'm going to talk about a fighting game called Them's Fighting Herds. Have you heard of this before?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. So apparently this has some like notoriety behind it. So this game is separated into 2 different sections. We're going to talk about the fighting game portion of this game first, which is what all of the trailers make it out to be, is just a fighting game. So I was recommended this game by Sir Chadley during my Twitch stream, and it was like $2.50, and I like fighting games. I'm not the biggest fan. Like, I don't play fighting games very, very competitively, but I enjoy playing them quite a bit, and I'm probably better at fighting games than most average players are.
Okay.
So I just want to put that out there that, like, I am a fan of this genre. I play a lot of fighting games, and I tend to be fairly decent at them. So take that into consideration as I talk about what I don't like about this game. So this game has a My Little Pony art style, and all the characters kind of look like they're from My Little Pony, and that is because this game actually started as a fan-made fighting game for My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. So it was a small team that were working on this game, and they got a cease and desist from whoever owns My Little Pony. I don't remember who. So they took all of their move sets and the from the characters that they had already made, and then got those characters reskinned, and they actually got them the new characters drawn by the lead artist for My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. So
very cool.
They're like that's pretty cool. They also got a lot of the voice actors from My Little Pony to come in and do the like voice lines for when you start a battle with your character, or the exertions, the end battle taunt. So if you're a fan of My Little Pony, I'm sure all of that fan service goes a long way. I'm not. It's never something that I've gotten into, so I can't speak to that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
The fighting game itself is pretty standard fighting game stuff. Like the most unique thing about this game is its art style. Mm-hmm. Everything else feels fairly basic and not very complex. And maybe I'm missing some key component here, but it feels like playing a game like Street Fighter, but slower and without combos.
Okay.
So it feels like okay, but it also doesn't feel great. And then I have a secondary issue, which I've seen several smaller fighting game teams do this, where they'll put their fighting game onto consoles, but then when you go to look at the control scheme for all of your moves and everything, they'll have everything labeled with A, B, C, D, like it's on an arcade cabinet.
Oh yeah.
That doesn't work on my controller that has X, square, triangle, and circle. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. I'm going to have a hard time understanding what your combo is when you're not telling me what buttons I need to push for the inputs that I'm using.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a lazy way of doing. You just have to do it once, and you don't have to change the buttons for every console.
Yeah. And like I'm not a developer. I don't know how difficult it would be to change essentially what's probably a PNG
Yeah.
from one console to the next, but I can't imagine it takes that much time, right?
Nah, it doesn't. But like, you push a build, you have to be sure that you have those pipelines set up correctly. But I'm sure it's there somewhere. You must have those PNGs of your correct buttons somewhere in the game. So if they're already there, like, but yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, and like I said, this is not the only fighting game I've seen that did something like this. There's another one that I played earlier this year that came out of China that has a name that I cannot pronounce because it's Chinese that did the same thing, and that game was exponentially more frustrating than this one, if I'm being perfectly honest about it. But that's besides the point. So standard fighting game moves are all here. You know, your quarter circles plus a button to do special attacks, all of that. And like the fighting doesn't feel, like I said, it doesn't feel bad, but it also doesn't feel great. And then there's also 4 DLC characters.
Okay.
And that's pretty normal for a fighting game to have DLC characters. But those DLC characters are already in the arcade fighting mode. You just can't choose them as a playable character, but you have to fight against them. And they are, in my opinion, having not bought the DLC, some of the strongest characters in this game, because all of those characters were the hardest fights that I had to fight against. So that's kind of frustrating. Why would you put those characters in the game already, but then not allow you to just play with them? Why charge me an additional $5 for them?
Yeah, that's cheap.
Yeah. You know, it's different when, you know, I buy so for example, Soul Calibur 6. Soul Calibur 6 came initially with like 25 characters, and then they released 2 battle passes with that each had like 4 additional characters from the history of Soul Calibur, and then like 1 additional character from an outside franchise. I'm fine with that because the game feels whole without those additional DLC characters.
Yeah.
It's just, it feels scummy is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So there's also an adventure mode in this game. And I was like, okay, cool. Like I like when fighting games specifically give me an additional mode to play. And this adventure story mode is a like top-down Zelda-like with pixel art.
Wow.
Which is interesting. And the character that you play as, at least at first, is this cow. And she, all of her voice lines are, well, most of them are vocal, but some of them are still just written, which fine, save some money on voice acting and whatever. But the way that she talks is just so cringe. It's like the most stereotypical, like Southern Texas bullshit that you can think of. And so the the adventure mode is separated into like 3 different play styles. You'll be in the top-down Zelda like gameplay, which is fine. Like you're doing normal Zelda like stuff. You know, jumping across not really jumping across pits, but like going through doors and finding a key item here to take it over there to open, or hit a switch to open another door somewhere else. All that normal stuff. Then you'll go into some areas where it wants you to do 2D platforming. And you'll be in a 2D platforming stage. And the problem with this is that the way that they want you to jump is with the analog stick. And you have 3 different types of jumps. You have your normal jump by just pushing the stick. You have a high jump by pressing down and then quickly flicking the stick straight up or upright, up left to get a high long jump. Or there's a short jump. And to do the short jump, you have to just barely nudge the stick like up left or upright, which is a very difficult input because I don't even think it has to be less than half of the movement of the stick to be able to input that particular type of jump. And the problem with that is that there's several parts of these platforming stages where if you do the normal jump, you're trying to jump across a platform, but there's spikes up above you. So if you do a normal jump, you hit the spikes and you get knocked down through the pit, and then you have to redo all this platforming to get back to that one spot to try and do this light jump again. It's very frustrating. I don't understand why they put platforming into this game. Does not make sense to me. But then when you get into combat with enemies, you'll see enemies on the map like it's a Zelda game, but when you run into them or they run into you, instead of just fighting them on that top-down map, they put you into the fighting game mode, which is like a 30-second loading screen on my PS4 to get into the fighting game mode. And then you have to fight maybe 1 or 2 enemies, which takes like 10 seconds, and then a 30-second loading screen to get back to the top-down Zelda mode. It's very annoying. That's really all I have to say about this game. It's an interesting idea that just doesn't work for me.
Yeah. And from what I'm seeing, last year they were supposed to have even more story mode and everything, but they fired all the devs and canceled everything, even though it was an Indiegogo finance game, and those were promises that like they reached those milestones, but they didn't deliver. So from what I've seen, the last year of reviews are mostly negative because they kind of abandoned the game and introduced some bugs right before abandoned the game.
Damn. Okay. Well, that makes it even worse, actually.
Yeah.
So with that information, I'm going to move this. I was going to put into this is fine. We're going to put it down into almost trash. Like I think they're like I said, I think there's some merit to the fighting game mode and there's some merit to the art style, but I don't think it comes together as a cohesive whole. So
yeah, and you got it at the AV discount because normally it's like $20 or something.
Do not pay $20 for this game.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna go back in a bit of positivity. Like I said, most of my $20 were good. And I will go with the short one. It's called Kaiju Control Force. It's an arcade platformer. Think Donkey Kong at the arcade if you want. So you go around, you jump on stuff, and there are many objectives in those levels. When I say Donkey Kong, it's the kind of the same controls, but the levels are like twice as large. So there will be some enemies popping up out of vents. There are classic enemies. There'll be enemies that will move on the platform, jump down. Some will stay in place and shoot some bullets. Other will fly towards you. And as you go into different levels, the enemies get stronger and stronger. So in the 3rd level, it's like a fire level, and some of the enemies will throw some fire at you, and other will fly and try to drop lava onto you. So this is the first part. You have to jump on the enemies, Mario style, to kill the enemies, and this will give you some money. Then you get that money to go to a terminal to buy stuff. So the stuff you can buy are either like key cards to activate some terminals, which are the goal of the level is to activate all the terminals, and some terminals will require some specific stuff that you can buy from the shop, but it doesn't really matter. You just have to buy the right thing for the right thing. So it's very, very simple. You can also buy some tape to block the fences, the vents, so less enemy will spawn. And there's also a generator mechanic. So there's like a generator that will give electricity to the level. And after a couple minutes, it will shut down. And then you have to jump on an enemy, grab it, move it into the generator so the electricity will come back on. And when there's no electricity, you cannot buy stuff and you cannot activate the terminals. It's a lot of things to do, and the enemy spawn rate is way too fast for single player. As a single player, I managed to beat the first 2 levels, but you have to go very slowly because if you try to go fast and just buy the stuff and go to the terminals, you will get overwhelmed by the enemies. So you have to take some time to kill the enemies, and you have to take some time to block the vents, and that will make every level kind of slow because you will spend like 3 minutes prepping the level to actually manage to finish the level in the end. And like when you buy, let's say, a key card, you can only grab one thing at a time. So you have to grab your key card and move it physically to the terminal. And once you're in the terminal, there's a mini game where you have to do. Do you remember the mini game in Yoshi's Island where you have to send the bubble to the enemy and repeat some buttons of the controller?
I don't. It's been probably 20 years since the last time I played Yoshi's Island. So
Yeah, but it's a very simple mini game. So basically, when you reach a terminal, you will have a sequence of buttons to press. I think there are only arrows to press. So like down, down, up, left, right. And you have to do that in real time to activate the terminal. So it's actually pretty intense and fun because there's a lot of enemies going around and you have to take the time to do the right button combination before getting hit by the enemies. And also the game is pretty, I won't say generous, because you can buy lives in the shop too. So you can actually manage to farm a bit of lives by killing enemies, getting money, and buying lives. Every life you buy will make the next one more expensive, but you can actually manage to. I think it's a fun twist on the arcade score system to gain life because you can actively choose to go for them or not. So I didn't talk about the story, but it's very simple. They're big kaijus that are destroying the earth, and you're like the control force that is managing to fix the buildings. So that's just very simple setup. I tried the game in co-op with my brother, and it was so much better. One person can focus on the enemies, where the other one is focusing on the terminals and the objectives of the level. And I would say, as a co-op game, I don't know if you can play 4-player, but for 2-player, it was still hard. We managed to get to the 4th level before dying, but in co-op, it was very, very fun. As a single player, it's very overwhelming, but I was still having fun. Like, it's an arcade game. It's made to be hard, but I would have liked maybe smaller levels. And it feels like there's only one difficulty for every number of players, but that's not super well balanced.
right.
But
Do you know how many levels there are in this game?
6. There's 6 levels. So, yeah. With my limited time with the game, I still managed to get like 3/4 of the way. So that's still pretty good. And I want to beat the game someday. It was a fun experience. The game is super cute. It's very basic, like 16-bit graphics, but it works well. It's just not super well balanced. But as an arcade game, it's a fun arcade game.
Cool.
And as for where I want to put it on the tier list, I think I would have to go with This Is Fine. It's almost great. Like, if there was a bit more balance for the single player, I think it would go into the great game. But as of right now, I think as a co-op game, it's great. As a single player game, it's just fine.
Okay. So my next game is also pretty short that I want to talk about. It's called Striker's Edge. It's a pixel art arcade style almost fighting game, but I would more compare it to like a dodgeball game.
Okay.
Except it's not dodgeball. You're throwing like spears and axes and shit at your opponents. But essentially you'll be put into a level or onto a map, and it's split in half. You cannot go across that halfway part ever. And you're on one side, your opponent's on the other side, and you have to hurl spears at them, hit them 3 times. And once you've hit them 3 times, they get knocked out for that round. And then you move on to the next round. You beat them twice, you win the match.
Okay.
It's got a few more mechanics than that, just that. So left stick moves, right stick it aims, so kind of like a twin stick shooter, but then you press R2 to actually throw your weapon. And you have a stamina meter, and stamina meter goes down as you throw your weapons, and it also goes down if you dodge roll, which you can do to get out of the way of incoming projectiles, and it goes down if you block, because you can block as well. And you have a block meter, so you can only block 3 times before you can no longer block any projectiles during that match. So that's kind of cool. I enjoyed that. And then each character has a special attack also that just does something like so the main character that I was playing, like, she throws her spear, and then you can press the special attack button after the spear has been thrown, and then like the path in which the spear just traveled catches on fire, so that it creates like a barrier where somebody either can't walk past it, or if they were like on top of it, they take a point of damage. And you do the special attacks by charging your attacks. So you have to press and hold R2 to charge your weapon, and it's risky to do that because you move very slow and you can't block or dodge while you're trying to charge your attacks. So you basically are opening yourself up for a potential attack from your enemy. And that's it. That's the basic mechanics of this game. You're just trying to beat your opponent really quick. And as a single player game, like, it's fine. I don't mind a single player experience like this. Like, it's not going to hold your attention for a long period of time, but to sit down and just play it for 10 minutes at a time as something to do while another game is installing is perfectly fine. Or when you have 5 minutes to spare when you're waiting to go somewhere and your girlfriend's not finished getting ready, like, this is the perfect time to pick up and play.
Yeah,
and there's no real commitment to it. You can it's very pick up and play. But in PvP, you can have up to 4 players in 2v2 matches, and that's where this game would really shine. Just having friends over at your house and chucking spears at each other, this game would be absolutely golden. And unfortunately, I did not get to play this one with my friends while they were all over this past weekend. But we played some other stuff that I don't need to talk about. But this one will definitely go in the rotation of games to play when I have friends over. So, Striker's Edge,
I just bought it. It's in 90% on Steam right now, so I just bought it. It looks really, really good.
Yeah, perfect. I got it for 90% off also, so you got it for like $2 or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. It's fun. This game's great. It's going straight into the A tier. Like, it's not phenomenal, but play it with your friends. You're gonna have a good time.
Nice. I will manage to do that for sure.
Awesome. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on it. I don't know if it's cross-platform, so I don't know if we'd be able to play it together since I bought it on PlayStation, but it's also $2. I might just buy it on Steam and we could play together online also, because it does have online matchmaking.
Well, doesn't seem like there's crossplay intended for it.
Okay.
But for $2, I think it's worth crossplay.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's $2, whatever. I don't care.
Okay, I'm gonna go into a pretty, I'm gonna say funny game. It's called Mac Biscuit Adventures, and the best way to describe this game is with a meme. It's basically the mom saying, "We have Donkey Kong Country at home." It's such a blatant ripoff. The character. Well, I say that there's a lot of unique mechanics and stuff, but the vibe and the visuals feel like Donkey Kong Country at home. The characters is.
Would you say it's as much of a Donkey Kong Country clone as like Kaze and the Wild Masks?
No. It's not. It's not as intense. It's more intense in the presentation than anything else. The character looks just like Diddy Kong. His main attire is a red shirt with a red cap, and it just has a big Donkey Kong Country flair over everything. And it's a 2D platformer. It's all 2D, like vector style, a bit like a Flash game, and the animation feels a lot like a Flash game. Like it's limb animations, like you really see like the layer of the arms and the legs.
Oh, I love that.
So, but the game has a lot of personality. Like the game is only 5 levels long, and each level is 3 to 5 minute level with kind of a mini game section and a boss fight. So like the first level, you run around in the jungle, you collect biscuits, and when you start, it's exactly like Donkey Kong Country Run. There's a little story where you lost all your biscuits and you have a cavern where you have your stash of biscuits and you have to find those bags exactly like the bananas in the first Donkey Kong Country. You do a bit of platforming. It's basic stuff. You have a single jump. You jump on enemies to kill them. And in each level, you will get like a weapon. In the first level, you can shoot a gun, I think, something like that. Most of them are projectile based. Then there's a rhino section, exactly like Donkey Kong Country. You just run on your rhino and destroy everything in your path, and then you fight a gorilla as the boss fight. The game has 2 difficulties. So there's the normal difficulty where there are checkpoints throughout the level, because the game is one hit death. So if you touch an enemy, get hit by the projectile, fall in a pit, you're dead. There's nothing you can do. And the harder difficulty is just the same, but there are no checkpoints. So you have to do all the level and beat the boss on a single hit point. So at first I started on hard because platformers are my jam and Donkey Kong Country is my jam. But at first I was like, yeah, man, this game is way too fucking difficult. Starting back at 4-minute level every time because I die at the boss fight. That was not fun. So I decided to go back to the normal section. And at first I was like, okay, there's like 1 million checkpoints. That's way too easy. But actually that was just for the first level. The other levels had the normal amount of checkpoints. So what I actually ended up doing is playing the level in normal mode to find all the secrets, know the layouts, and know the patterns of the boss fight, because the boss fights are easy, but they're a bit surprising. So if you play on hard, you will get your ass kicked because some of those patterns just come super quick and you don't have the time to react. And since you have to do a 5-minute level every time to try the boss again, that's not fun. But on normal mode, there's always a checkpoint right before the boss, so you can just learn the pattern quickly, and then you can beat them without getting a single hit. So I would do the level in normal, beat it 100%, beat the boss, and then I would do it again on difficult, trying to do it in a single hit point. And I actually beaten the game both on normal and hard at 100%. I don't know why, but the save says 83%, but I got the best ending because there is a best ending for beating the game in hard mode. And it's just like a big explosion, and then it says you are the best player. That's all the best nice is. And yeah, each level has a theme. So the first one is jungle, the second one is a beach. And what that means is that your character will dress up accordingly to the level that you're playing. So in the beach section, Capybarski has some sunglasses and he's in a bathing suit, and all the enemies also will take a costume fitting the environment you're in. There's also a samurai level. There's like a Blade Runner level where you have a gun and you shoot lasers and all the enemies are kind of robots. And there's heavy rain with a lot of rain splashing in the screen. So I can see that there was a lot of passion put in the game. It's pretty short game. I think it took me maybe 2 hours to beat the game twice, 2 or 3 hours. But every level was fun. Discovering all the new look on those levels was pretty fun. Capybarski has the the funniest running cycle where you just have both arms in the air and he's running like so that's pretty cute. And there are a couple of mini games outside of the levels. There's one that's a bit like Flappy Bird, where you're like in a whale moving up and down, and it's also a shmup where you can shoot the enemies coming at you. And there's one that's like Turtles in Time. Mom, we have Turtles in Time at home. It's just a beat 'em up, like a small like 300 beat 'em up, and it's all the same moves as Turtle in Times. You're like dressed up as a turtle, and you're just taking the enemies, swinging them, throwing them at the screen. It's exactly the same. I don't know why they're just copying everything, but that was pretty fun to find. And yeah, it's a simple platformer. There's a lot of things to like. I would say, yeah, the hard mode is just way too hard to go straight into it. But if you learn the levels, it's perfectly fine. I think I would put it in the A tier, maybe a low A tier. But yeah, I like platformers. I like Donkey Kong Country, and this game delivered on both fronts. So for me, it's just a fun platformer. If you're looking for a fun platformer, you have a good hour or two with it.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
I might check that out. So, let me ask you, Max, how do you feel about auto runners?
Like auto runners, one of my favorite games. I didn't talk about it, but one of my favorite games is Temple Run and Temple Run 2. I played those games so much. I like a good auto runner.
Okay. So, Clash of the Carrots Ninjin is an auto runner, but instead of like Temple Run where you're running forwards, it's running to the side, kind of like it plays like a beat 'em up, except you're always moving past the like background and whatnot.
Okay.
And beat 'em up is the best way to describe this game. Like you got the faux, like everything. Well, let me start with the art style. The art style is very cute. Everything is like this kind of strange, but I don't know how to describe it. Like almost off-putting, like character designs, but everything is like animals. So like your main character is a rabbit, and the secondary character, if you're playing with 2 players, is like this little fox. And it's a really strange art style, but it's really, really cool. I really liked it.
I would describe it as like Adult Swim pixel art.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it for sure. So it's because it's a beat 'em up. It's pretty simple. You move to the right, enemies come on screen, they go off screen. You attack them with various weapons. You have 3 different weapon types, or maybe 4 different weapon types. You have, I think it's 4. It's so like daggers are short range, but fast. Swords, medium range, and still kind of fast, but slower than daggers. And then you have heavy weapons, which are slow and do big damage. I did not like heavy weapons. And then you have spears, which long range, but only stick out in a straight line instead of a sweeping arc. And I like the like regular sword type weapons. I felt like they were the most balanced and the easiest to use. And then you have throwing weapons also, which don't do a lot of damage, but they're useful for some things because like some of the enemies will explode when you hit them. So like you'll have to throw a weapon at them, otherwise you'll take damage. And yeah, I think this game is a little bit too challenging. I got to like the 5th level and basically got stuck. I got stuck for a little while, and what I had to do was you can buy, so you have an equipment slot called talismans that provide different buffs for your characters that you can purchase either in shops or you can pick them up from treasure chests that drop from enemies. But you can buy an item in the shop that is essentially making the game easier, but it takes one of your talisman slots from you. So it's kind of a punishment for trying to make the game easier for yourself. And you can have up to 2 of those equipped. I had to buy one of them to be able to get farther into the game. And then I got stuck again a second time. And that's when I kind of was like, I think I'm kind of done at this point because I'm in like the second set of levels out of I think 5. And I'm already having this much trouble where I'm taking too much damage, and I can't seem to figure out how to not take damage because there's so many enemies on screen at the same time that I decided that it's better to just walk away from this one for right now. I think overall this game's actually pretty cool, but I think the difficulty of it is just a little bit too high. Like if it was rebalanced and to make it just a little bit easier, I would probably enjoy it more.
Yeah, I've seen that there is co-op for this game, so maybe it's more balanced if you play with a friend.
It might be, yeah. And I might try and play it with somebody, but we'll see. We'll see if I decide to come back to it.
Okay.
I don't have much else to say about it other than that. Like it's fine. It's going right into our B tier. This is fine. Yeah, it's an interesting game. The way the level select works is kind of like Super Mario World, where you're on like this top-down map and you move along the map to get to the individual levels, which is a nice flair to the game, right? But yeah, the gameplay's pretty basic. It's nothing really special, is what I would say about it.
It's more flair that fun.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds pretty fair. Okay, I have also a pretty simple game to talk about right now. It's called Starlight Riders Hyperjump. I don't think I don't think many people played that one. I don't find it right now, but yeah, it's an indie shmup, bullet hell. So Mr. Sparkle may be interested right now, but won't be interested for very long. It's a simple 16-bit bullet hell shmup, and I would say everything is decent. It looks decent. The difficulty curve is pretty decent. The first level is way easier than the last level, but I'm not a shmup bullet hell expert, and I did manage to beat every level, so it's fine. It plays fine. The bullet patterns are pretty standard. There's one that's actually pretty cool where it's like one of those radial bullet patterns where it goes in a circle, but every pattern is wavy also, and I did not see that in any other shmup. I'm sure other shmup have done this, but it was the first time seeing it, so to me, so it was pretty cool. But this game Yeah, before talking about the problem with the game, I'm going to talk a bit about the gameplay. So you hold the button to shoot, and you have two shoot buttons. You have the spread one that does less damage but covers the whole screen, and you have the focused shot where if all your shot goes into a single beam and you attack strong, your attack is stronger. But it's both the bottom button and the top button. So switching between those two modes is not quick. It doesn't work. It would have been much better to have like X and A instead of A and Y. So I don't know why they decided on this control scheme, but that's weird. You also have 3 bombs per lives, but the bombs are not like typical clear all screen bombs. They're more like a shield, so they will destroy all the bullets around you, and you will get some points from that. And there's also a mechanic where you shoot the enemies, they will drop some pickups. They're like blue squares, and you build a meter. And with this meter, you can either use it to warp, so the whole game goes into slow motion, and you can warp somewhere safe in the screen. But there's so many bullets that I didn't really use that mechanic a lot, because most of the time there's not really a safer space where I will be able to just continue thinking about the bullet pattern, because I'm warping somewhere I wasn't really looking at before. And you can also use that meter to unleash a stronger attack that will last for like 5 or 10 seconds, and you destroy everything with it. The problem with this game is that it does nothing great. It just does everything decent. There is no sound effects, so no sound effect for your bullets, no sound effect for the enemies getting exploded, nothing for your bullets hitting the enemies, so you never know what's happening on the screen. You're just looking at your character and avoiding bullets. The music is fine, but there's no sound effects. There's no leaderboards, and that also means no local leaderboards either. So you finish a level and your score will not be saved. So that's weird for shmup game where getting a good score is like half the game. And there's a leaderboard button, but it just grayed out. So I don't understand why it's not there. Also, there's no full game mode. So the full game mode is just you doing every level one after the other. This is a full game mode, but what I mean is that your score resets between each level. So you can only grind the individual levels, and there's no cumulative score, and nothing is saved anyway. So what the fuck?
Weird.
Yeah. And also you get all your lives back between levels. So it's really not a full game mode. You're just playing each level from scratch, all the 5 levels from scratch. And there's also no win screen. So on top of not having any leaderboards, you finish the 5th level and the game just ends and you're booted back at the at the main screen.
Damn, okay. Was this made by like a single person? Because this sounds kind of like a single dev who was not able to finish their game.
Yeah, I think it is. From at least it looks like that. I think he used also AI for some of the images and everything, but he also used a lot of Photoshop, so that he did what he could with the limited time and effort he had. I'm gonna check. Lunar City 7 Studio. Do we have any? Nope, I don't have any information on the two. But yeah, it looks like a single dev endeavor. Oh, Caesar Capital. No, it's another game. I don't know. So yeah, it looks like a single dev endeavor. It released on November 8th, so it's very, very new. It's okay, I guess. But yeah. Do you have any other question before I put it on the tier list?
I don't think so. I mean, the anime girls look cute. I'll say that.
Yeah. they're not really in the game. Like they're on the side of the player that doesn't play because it does have co-op. I did not try co-op. But other than that, you're just in a ship and fighting evil robots.
Yeah.
There's a mindless story about the robot wanting to destroy heroes, but yeah, who cares?
Yeah, nobody's playing a shoot 'em up for the story. I'm looking at the Steam page right now. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I like
Yeah.
anime, so that's gonna catch my attention.
Yeah, so I did get it because it looked pretty decent and the anime goes were fine, and I like trying a shmup from time to time, but
Yeah,
for the tier list, I'm gonna put it in almost trash. Once again, I feel a bit bad doing that to a single dev, just having fun and making a game, but
Mhm.
it's just unfinished. If
Yeah, it sounds
if
incomplete.
yeah, if it had everything that I think that it's missing, maybe it would surely at least be this is fine. It could maybe even be great. Like I think it's a good level entry shmup. Like everything is pretty easy. Everything is easy to understand and readable and everything. But yeah, it's not finished. So in the current state, it's almost trash. You cannot have a shmup with a score system and not saving those scores. That's just
Yeah,
unacceptable.
there's only 3 user reviews on Steam, so
Yeah, I picked really the most obscure cream of the crop.
nice. I love it. You don't have anything else to say about that one? I take it.
Yeah, I'm done with this game. I've
Okay.
beaten the game twice. Just say I've been it level twice. So it did hold my attention for a bit. Like I played each level once. The 4th level is the most difficult one, and then I tried a full game run to see if anything would be different. But like I said, nothing was different.
Okay. So the next game that I want to talk about is called Away: Journey to the Unexpected. And this is a first-person dungeon crawler, roguelike or roguelite. I don't know which of the rogue words I'm supposed to be using here.
Yeah.
Essentially, you play as a kid and you're trying to find your parents. They have been gone. They're like scientists and they've been out doing something, and then there's like this evil company that like breaks into your basement and crashes through the basement wall because they're like mining for this goo for some aliens. It's very strange, and I didn't get very deep into the story because it's kind of presented to you fragmented, and I didn't get very far into this game. So, as I said, it's a first-person dungeon crawler, and it kind of looks like a PS2 game in all of its environmental graphics and everything. Like everything's kind of blocky and chunky, and like things that are supposed to be cylinders are actually octagons. Like, and I like that. I think that looks really good. All of the NPCs and the enemies are like 2D sprites that are placed into the 3D world, and then they always just rotate to face your character whenever you look at them, which I always like that art style. It looks cool. So it's a cool looking game. And you go into the first level of this game and you're dropped into this big open environment, and you can run around and you can collect coins and find chests that have coins in them or health items in them. And so it's first person combat with, you have a stick as your weapon, and it's just like, I would say probably the same as like a Morrowind. It's not quite as advanced as Skyrim, but it's pretty primitive first person. You swing your stick, your hitbox goes out for X amount of distance and hits enemies. And enemies will either shoot projectiles at you or just try and walk into you. And if you get hit, you take damage. You have 3 health. And every time you get hit, depending on the enemy, it usually takes half a heart from you. So you can essentially get hit 6 times, except for some of the stronger enemies that will take a full heart from you. So you go into this open environment, you find this cube, and what that cube does is it allows you to recruit another NPC to help you on your quest. And then you can switch back and forth between your main character and that NPC. And that NPC has an energy bar, and that energy bar is drained by either attacking with them or by them getting hit by enemies. So you only have that NPC for a very limited period of time. And the first one that you find is this wizard, and he has a staff and he shoots fireballs out of his staff. So it gives you a powerful ranged option, and you can always get him whenever you go into this first level. So you're in this, like I said, you're in this big open environment. You have to go into these 3 dungeons, and each of those dungeons are randomly generated. Kind of. So they're generated from like the same, let's say 15 to 20 tile sets, and then just smashed together into whatever pattern. And you have to get to the end of the dungeon, find the end of the dungeon, pull a lever, and then leave the dungeon. Once you complete all 3 of those, it opens the final dungeon of that area. When you get to the end of that final dungeon, well, let's take a step back. You go into that final dungeon. This is a large dungeon. Same idea is here. It's randomly generated from the same 20 or so tiles, just placed in a different order every time you enter. And in order to get through the final dungeon, you have to find the final boss key. You have to find the boss key, which is placed somewhere randomly within this dungeon, and then find the boss door, which is also placed somewhere randomly within the dungeon. And then you fight the boss, and then you go into the second open world level. And you have to essentially do the same thing again. Find the 3 smaller dungeons, beat all the enemies, and pull the levers in those, and then get to the final dungeon of the second area. When you die, you get an amount of experience points based on some arbitrary thing. I don't know how it's calculating how much experience you get, like whether it's however many enemies you defeated or how long you stayed alive or something. I don't really know. And that unlocks different perks for you for your next run into the game. So like I unlocked an additional heart container, so I had essentially 8 health instead of 6, and then I had to unlock a key that essentially allowed me to bypass the 3 mini dungeons in the first world, and made it so that when I started another run, all I had to do was that larger boss dungeon in that first world. And that leads me to what I don't like about roguelikes, is that I don't want to have to replay this first level over and over and over again just to get into the second level to try and beat these 3 smaller dungeons, and then beat the larger dungeon to be able to then progress my game forward. And like, I know some people have compared roguelikes to, like, you know, classic games, whether like 16-bit games or 8-bit games. And the big difference for me is that, you know, when I play a game like Sonic the Hedgehog and I die in the 4th level and I have to go back to level 1, I've played level 1 so many times that I know exactly where everything is.
Yeah.
It's not randomly generated, and I don't have to wander around a fucking dungeon looking for a boss key to be able to then fight a boss that's also going to be randomized every time that I go into that boss fight.
Yeah.
It just gets frustrating for me because I don't want to keep playing this first level only to get to the second level with half of my health and then potentially die at the beginning of the second level.
Yeah.
Roguelikes just aren't for me. I know this, and had I seen the roguelike tag on this game, I would not have bought it.
Yeah, I get it.
And I really tried to give this game like a fair shot because I didn't want to just... Had I bought this not for the podcast, I would have realized it was a roguelike and just immediately shut it off. But I was like, that doesn't fit with the spirit of what we're trying to do, you know, here.
Yeah.
For this particular episode. So I put about 5 hours into this game, which I feel like I feel like is a reasonable amount of time. This game's also, I don't think, very long.
Yeah. It says 3 to 5 hours on the Steam page.
Yeah. I think the combat is a little janky. Like sometimes you can't quite tell if an enemy is close enough to you to actually get hit by your attacks. And sometimes it can be hard to tell if you're far enough away, to not be hit by them, or like you go to swing your weapon and you just barely miss them, so then that leaves you open to being attacked. And enemy projectiles move, I think, a little too fast. It makes them very hard to dodge, and it makes enemies with projectiles very difficult to try and defeat because it's very hard to get close to them because they're shooting at you.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that ranged option available, it can be very difficult to actually get to them to be able to do damage to them. So I kept dying to ranged enemies.
I feel like the gameplay is not compelling enough. Like the movement and combat is not compelling enough to worry at it being a roguelike. Because you will do the same thing over and over again compared to something like Dead Cells, where the movement and combat is so snappy that even if you're replaying the same levels, you're actually getting way better at the game because you have a finer control on with combat and controls, and it's fun just moving and attacking. Where in this game, it feels like a bit like a chore getting back where you were.
Yeah. That a chore is exactly how I would describe it. If this were not a roguelike, I would love this game because I like a janky first person dungeon crawler that looks like a PS2 game is like 100% my thing. I just don't want to have to replay the first level every time. Like that's frustrating for me. So I'm going to put it in the B tier. This is fine. I think like some people would actually really enjoy this game. Like if you don't mind those roguelike elements and you want a first person dungeon crawler that's a roguelike, this is a good one. I just wish it wasn't. I wish I could just go back into level 2 every time and not have to waste 15 minutes trekking my way back through the first level again.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Right? Yeah, you give it a shot. It didn't, man.
Yep.
Okay.
What do you have next for us?
Yeah, I have a game, a very small game. It's called Cooper, and it's a game that was made for a game jam at first. It's a game for like a 13K game jam. So you have to do a JavaScript game in under 13 kilobytes. And this was made for that at first, but he expanded the scope and released it on Steam. And speaking of roguelite, it is a luck-based dice pirate combat roguelite. So basically you're on a little ship. There's a little like MIDI funny tune that gets a little bit repetitive, but it really fits the vibe. It's pretty happy. And you have a set of dice, and you have to beat 13 ships to win. And the gameplay boils down to you roll your dice, and you have one free reroll per ship, per attack. And you sum up all the dice that you roll, and you do that damage to your enemy, and then your enemy decides to put that damage on one of their own dice. And then it's their turn to attack, and then you decide you put their damage on which dice. So you can only kill one dice at a time. So if your enemy has 3 dice, you need at least 3 attacks to kill it. And the game is just you move with it moves automatically. So your ship moves around. There's an event. You will either get a new companion for your crew. So maybe one guy will give you some dice. One will upgrade the roll of your dice. One will help you get more random events to upgrade your ship. Or you will fight some pirate ships. And the game is all vector style. Yeah, do you have a question?
I do, actually. I wanted to ask you about this dice mechanic.
Yeah.
Does it work kind of in the way where like you're rolling dice against your opponent who's rolling dice also?
No, it's turn-based.
Okay, it's turn-based. I got you.
Yeah. So you roll your dice, they assign the damage, and then it's their turn to roll their dice. So it's not 1v1. The one rolls the stronger attack wins or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all like Victor style, all like stick man. It's like beans with stick arms and stick feet. It's really cute. And yeah, it's a bit hard to describe, but it's a fairly simple game. You go around, you roll the dice, and you hope for the best. There's a bit of strategy on which sometimes you will get some pirates trying to sell their crewmates, and you can choose which one you want to make your build for your ship, and you can get as many dice as you want. So you can have a ship with like 13 dice on it, and each dice can go up to 9 dots on them. So you can have like really really strong attack. And yeah, basically your dice are both your attack and your health. So if you have a dice with 4 pips on it, that dice when it rolls can do 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 attack. So if you have a dice with 9 pips, it's much stronger because it can do 9 attack. An attack of 9 damage. And if you receive, let's say, 7 damage, you can decide to either kill your dice with a 4 on it, or take the damage and reduce your dice from 9 to 2.
Okay.
And there are 3 different kind of dice. There are normal dice. There are orange dice that are worth more to bribe your pirates. So every time you attack a pirate ship, you can either attack them and try to destroy them, or try to bribe them by giving them your dice. And there's no guarantee that it will work. So you maybe have to waste like 5 dice to actually bribe them. So it's a gamble that you have to take. And between each dice that you give them, you can stop the bargaining and just start attacking them. And there's also gray dice. I think it's metal dice, and those can only take 1 damage at a time. So even if you receive an attack of 26, if you select that dice to receive the damage, you will only get a single point of damage on that dice. So basically, if you have that dice with 4 pits on it, that's 4 free hits that you can get in the whole fight. And when you kill a ship, you get to pick one of their dice to keep with you. So that's one of the ways that you're getting stronger between each fight. So if you bargain and you bribe the pirate to not attack them, well, you won't get new dice, but you might also not lose the dice that you would have lost during the fight. So it's all a luck managing game. There are a lot of funny random events. You can. I saw the devil once, and I did not attack. I don't remember. I think I had the choice to attack it or something, but I just avoided it. But actually, I think there's a separate quest line or something when you see that devil man. So I'm a bit sad that I did not manage to get that event in. I skipped over it, and well, I managed to beat the game. You beat 13 ships, and then you win. It says win. And the end, interrogation mark. So I don't know if there's an infinite mode after that, because the first fight I had before that ending, I just got destroyed. I did maybe 2 damage, everything. They just canceled all my attacks. So that was weird. So I don't know if there's more to the game, but as far as luck-based roguelike, let's say I compare it to Balatro, which is a bit in the same genre. I had a lot more fun with this game. I will replay it. I want to see all the different events, and it's a fun killing time game. It's relatively easy. It's goofy. It was a really, really nice find. I recommend it. I think I would put it in the A tier. It was a great time.
Excellent. That sounds interesting. Like I said, I'm not big on the roguelike, so I doubt I will play it. But
yeah.
I haven't even tried Balatro yet. So
yeah, but at the same time, it's Like, it's roguelike in the sense that you have a build that you make on every run, but it's much closer to an arcade game because it's just like one big string of events to reach the end. So it's like one big level if you want. So that's right. It's a roguelike in some elements, but at the same time, it's more a strategy game and you can win once and never play it again. So I think you could maybe like it in that sense where the roguelike elements are more secondary to the gameplay.
So, next game that I want to talk about is called Skully. Have you heard of this before?
I've heard of this and it's been on my wish list for a while, but when it released, I saw that it got like really bad reviews that I think it released it for like $70 or something. It was really insane. I think it's still super expensive, but it's always on 90% sales every time we can.
Well, I got it on that 90% sale on the PlayStation Network, and I really enjoyed this. I don't think it would be worth the $70 or $50 or whatever its full price would be, but it's essentially a 3D platformer with some very light puzzle elements into it. But you play as a skull who's been like animated with clay, and you roll around these levels and you roll very, very fast. So it's a lot of momentum-based jumping, where you're trying to build up speed so that you can jump farther. And jump is the primary action you'll be doing in this game because it's a 3D platformer. So, and because of the like physics of it, when you're jumping onto platforms that are, kind of at angles, you can accidentally roll off of them and into water, which is like the primary pits of the game, which will just kill you basically instantly. It's not actually instantly. It drains your health bar really, really fast.
Okay.
So fast that you're probably not getting back out of it. But as you play through, you get to these checkpoints. They're pools of mud. You basically like sink down into the mud and then come back up. That saves your progress, and then you continue on forward. Graphically, it looks like any kind of semi-modern, pseudo-realistic kind of game. Like all of the environments are like jungles and rocks and stuff like that. Like it's a very natural environment. There's not much like man-made stuff. And so you're just jumping from platform to platform and rolling your ball, kind of like Super Monkey Ball is the best comparison that you could make to this game, honestly. And then the puzzle elements come through where you get these additional golem forms where you get 3 of them. One of them is like a big heavy guy. He can punch enemies because there are some enemies in the game. You can mostly just ignore the enemies, but you can get rid of them with this one particular golem. But he can also break through walls. So you might have to go into one of those mud pits, transform into that type of golem, break through a wall, and find your way to get to that wall that needs to be broken, because you'll have a big colored crack on it that you need to break.
Okay.
So find your way to it and then break through the wall, and then you can progress with the platforming. And then there's 2 other golems. One of them essentially allows you to move platforms horizontally, but only certain platforms. And then there's another one that allows you to move platforms vertically and also has a double jump, so you can jump much higher. So the puzzles come in where they're all pretty basic, honestly, where it's just, I have to take this golem and I have to move these platforms to these specific spots so that I can then make the jumps to get across to the next area. And they really slow the pace of the game down, like to an extent that I was getting bored with doing some of these platforming puzzles. I think if there were less of these platforming puzzles and more of just the kind of difficult rolling platforming puzzles, like with the skull himself, this game would be a lot better. And then there's a few times where it goes into like this Crash Bandicoot style like mode where you have something chasing after you, whether it's a tidal wave or a boulder or whatever, and so you'll be rolling towards the screen with a fixed camera, unlike the rest of the game where you have a, free flowing, you can move the camera however you want. And those sections get really tricky because it becomes very difficult to judge how far you're jumping, and you also, there's not a whole lot of space in between like what's chasing you and where your next platform is. So it becomes quite annoying to play through these few sections, and thankfully there's not a lot of them. So that wasn't great, but I would say overall, I mean, the game's like 5 hours long.
Okay.
And it's fairly challenging at some points. Like some of the precision platforming that you have to do is quite tight and quite precise and requires a lot of retries, which I didn't mind because the checkpoints are frequent. But the kind of the few other like types of gameplay that they added in, I think really took away from what this game should have been, in my opinion, which was just rolling around as a ball and trying to solve puzzles that way, rather than the additional golem forms that were they felt kind of pointless at the end of the day, is what it came down to. You do have some boss fights, and those are kind of interesting. They mostly come down to, like most boss fights in a lot of older games, like perform this particular action 3 times versus the boss to be able to defeat them. And then the one last thing that is really kind of odd about this game is that it feels like they ran out of money partway through the production, because there's a whole bunch of cutscenes, because there is a story to this game. The story has something to do with like the guy who made you is like an earth element, and then there's a water, a fire, and a wind elemental guy, and all 4 of them are siblings that are on this island, and you're trying to like stop your siblings from fighting each other. That's the primary story. It's not great, but it's there and it's serviceable. But all of the cutscenes are like, it's like they were storyboarded with the 3D models of the characters, and then they just didn't have the time or the resources to actually animate them. But then there's a couple of cutscenes that are animated, which is why it feels like it's kind of unfinished. And then there's also, the later you get into the game, it also gets a little buggy. Like there were times where when you go into the mud pit checkpoints, there were a couple of times where, and it only happened at the end of the game, where Skully would like fall through the mud pit and out through the bottom of the geometry of the world. But then when I released the L2 button, which is what allows you to sink into the mud in the first place to save at that checkpoint or transform into one of the golems, when I would release L2, I would just pop back up right where I was anyway. So like the falling through the geometry didn't actually affect anything. It was just a weird visual glitch.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, like I think this game is cool. I think it's interesting. I think it could have been better than what it is. So, but I do think it's worth checking out, and I will put it in our B tier because I think it's fine.
Yeah. I think it's fine. I think it sounds fine, mostly if you can accept jank. If you're, bit of jank averse, I think this is not.
Yeah, if you don't like janky games, don't play this, because it is a little janky. The platforming feels good, though.
Yeah, nice. Okay, I'm gonna end my list of games with my favorite game of the bunch, and it has a very good name for our podcast. It's called Cyber Trash Statics.
Nice.
And I've been pleasantly surprised with this game. I started playing it, I think, yesterday morning, and I've completed the game in one sitting. It took me about
Nice.
4 hours to beat, and it was a great time from start to finish. So basically, it's a post-apocalyptic tactical run and gun. And when I say tactical run and gun, is that you have to play it a bit like a cover shooter at times. So you're not going guns blazing like in Contra. You have to stop and take the time to kill the robots before continuing to move. But the base of the game is you run and you gun. That's the base of the game. Still, there's a bit of platforming too, and the platforming is fine. The main mechanic is that you can slide, and if you jump out of the slide, you do a big jump. And there's nothing really difficult about the platforming. It's just there for the sake of being there. But the one thing that I didn't like is that some sections are a bit vertical, but you get stuck in the top platforms very easily. So there's no smoothing on the corners of those platforms. You really have to not be under the platforms to jump up. So that's like my only gripe with the gameplay. Everything else plays very fine. All the guns are fun to use. And graphically, it's like 16-bit, and it reminds me a bit of Celeste, like with tiny heads and no eyes, no mouths, but all your characters are like grown up. So, and compared to Celeste, where they're tiny characters, now it's like full anime style characters, but with that Celeste art style. And you play as a big titty anime girl. That's one of the standing points. But since most of the game you're playing with your gun and your arm in front of your boobs, that you don't really see them much. You only see them in cutscenes. So, like, it's there for clicks, I believe, more than anything.
Probably.
And there's a lot of story in the game. So, like I said, it's post-apocalyptic. There's a whole very large story, expensive story, and without getting too much into spoilers, basically robots took over the world and they're cloning humans, erasing memories, and you're trying to figure out all of that. The game starts and you were for 2 months in an isolation ward doing God knows what, and then when you finally get back to the institute, they tell you it's because of the virus and they're keeping you're being captive because they're dealing with the virus and everything, but that's all lies. Very early you understand that something's wrong, and the institute is working with corporations. It's kind of an anti-corporation message. Anyway, that's a theme of the game. There is anti-corporations. It's like ruining the land and everything. And the game is divided in like 3 sections. There's the flashback sections where you play as you and your friend as little girls, and you're doing various mini games like playing hide and seek, playing tag, and just goofing around. Then there's the main story section when you talk with the other girls in the ward, in the institute, and you see the bad guys talking together and trying to figure out what is going on with the game. And then they send you into missions where you have to run and gun, kill robots, and beat some bosses. And the game rocks, man. The music is super fitting. It's all metal, 16-bit rock music. And yeah, it's a run and gun, man. I don't really know what to say more. I just really like the game. Yeah, there's 3 difficulties. Yeah, there's an easy difficulty where the enemies will rarely shoot. I did not try that. There's normal mode, which for me was a perfect amount of difficulty. I did die a couple times, and I sent you a screenshot yesterday. It's the worst game over screen of all time. It's just one big gradient with blocky text saying unit eliminated. There's
So this is what that's from.
Yeah, there's no music jingles. There's nothing. It's just, I don't understand, because all the rest of the game is super beautiful. The pixel art is super fine. It looks good, but that screen is like from a Flash game from 1999. I don't get it. It's so weird. And yeah, you have and there's an harder difficulty where apparently the enemies shoot more, have more energy, but to me that sounds more like a chore than anything. The main game was super well balanced. Like I said, I died a couple times. The enemies were a bit of sponges, but just enough that you couldn't just go run guns blazing, and you have to take your time, position yourself. You can have 2 different guns at once, one light gun and one heavy gun, and they're all ammunition based. So if you go through all your ammos, well, you lose that gun.
Okay.
It's all like a spread shot, normal shot, grenade launcher. That was my favorite. That was a smart design. So if you use the grenade launcher and you hit the enemy, it will explode on contact. But if it just goes to the ground, it will wait a couple seconds and then it will explode. But if the enemies are throwing grenades and they hit you, you won't take damage. They will always need to reach the ground first and then explode. So the same mechanic is not the same, because it would be frustrating if it was doing this to you, but it would be frustrating if you were hitting the enemies and they were not exploding. So there are some smart designs in the game. And there's also an RPG mechanic where the more robots that you kill, you will get experience that will give you experience point to upgrade your character between missions. There's an hack level to get better weapons and more weapons that need hacking to unlock them in the levels. You will get a better jump, better accuracy, and better base gun, and stuff like that. Better luck too, and you can also get more currency, I think. And the currency is pretty good too. You get it by destroying crates around the level, and you can use that currency to buy levels also in some levels. So you can farm that money to get your character stronger. So yeah,
cool.
It's a fun ride. It's a great run and gun. The story, I think the dev, it's a small team. There are like 2, 3, or 4 people, and I think English is not their main language. Like in the first sections of the game, the game is just weirdly worded at sometimes, and the sentences are not using like the right words. But at the same time, I don't know if it's kind of intentional to do a bit like the 8-bit games that were badly translated. But the way it was done, it felt just like they translated the game themselves and just add a couple weird sentences here and there.
Cool. So, interesting thing about this, I've actually had this on my PlayStation wish list for quite a while, but on the PlayStation Network, they sell it for $10, and on Steam, it's $5, but on sale right now for like $4 and some change.
Yeah, that's where I got it.
Yeah, I've been waiting for this to go on sale on PlayStation Network for a while to actually buy this, and you just bumped it up on my want list even more, so...
Any last questions before I put it on the tier list? Was I
Nope.
Was it clear enough?
You were clear enough. I understand, and I want this game now.
Cool. Well, yesterday I thought I would put it in great games, but thinking back on it, I think I will bump it to absolute banger. I was not expecting much of this game. I was expecting like a Contra clone, but then I just ended up doing it beating the game in one full sitting. I really appreciate how the dev tried to do a complete game in 4 hours with different sections and extensive world and extensive story. It's not super surprising in the story side, but I like the effort. It's not too much. It's a bit much at times. There's a lot of talking, but you can skip every dialogue. So if you don't care about that, you can also skip everything. So that's good. There's a lot of good designs. It looks good. It plays fine. I think for that price, for $5, it's an absolute banger. You will have a great afternoon playing that game. And yeah, it's a transportation banger.
Excellent. It's going to be the only one that goes into that that category today.
I'm not I'm not surprised.
Well, so like sometimes I find some of my favorite games that I played doing this kind of experiment where I'm just like, oh, I'm going to spend $25 on some video games and see what I find. And I found some truly fantastic games doing this, and I just don't think I did this time. So
yeah, that's a gamble that we take.
Yep. So my final game, I won't have a whole lot to say about it. It's called Degrees of Separation. This game is 100% designed to be a 2-player co-op puzzle platformer, but you can play it single player, which is cool because I don't really have somebody that, like, my girlfriend doesn't play video games, not very often, and when she does play something, like, I think the only game that she's played anytime recently was Viva Pinata on Xbox 360, and she basically didn't play. She just, like, loaded up her old profile and looked at the names of all of her little pinata characters and then was done. So I don't really have anybody to play this with locally. There is online multiplayer, but I don't really like getting online and like playing with randoms, which I could have done if I wanted to. But essentially the core concept of this game is that you have these two characters. Rhyme is one of them and Ember is the other. And Rhyme is cold, ice element, and Ember is fire, hot element. So all of the puzzles revolve around essentially the two of them having to work together, and they literally split the screen in half, where one half of the screen will be like lush summertime and bright and colorful, and then Rhyme's cold half will be blue toned and white toned and winter looking. And so what you end up having to do is use each of them in various ways to solve puzzles where, like, you might have to like freeze water in a certain part so that Rhyme can get across, while Ember is holding a switch down that's like opening a door, and then Rhyme will walk across the water, go under the door, find another switch, pull that switch, and that allows Ember to get to a different location. And the whole point is to find these scarves that are scattered out throughout these levels. And the scarves, you need them to unlock the next level. So you have to solve the puzzles. You can just run past all of them if you want to. Like the puzzles aren't usually blocking your progress forward, which is, I found, kind of strange. So you could, if one of them is like stumping you really bad and you can't quite figure it out, you can just bypass it, which I think is good. But I did find it kind of weird that the puzzle element wasn't actually blocking your progress forward throughout the levels of the game. And yeah, so like that's the core that's the core concept of this game, is just solving these puzzles by using the two characters and they interact with various elements of the environment in different ways. And I think it's a really good idea. My problem with this game is that it's just too long. Mm-hmm. How Long to Beat has this at like 6.5 hours, which is like, I'd be fine with this if it was like 3 hours long, right? But playing this by myself for 6 hours is just a little bit too much. Like, I would probably enjoy it more if I was playing it with a friend or a partner, But for a 6-hour puzzle platformer, it's not holding my attention enough to continue to play it by myself.
That sounds like the kind of game that just gets like
repetitive
and shorter the more you go along.
And I would say repetitive is probably the best way to describe some of the puzzles, because it's like you're using the same kind of actions multiple times, just in a slightly different order to get through most of the puzzles. And some of them were pretty challenging and felt rewarding to like actually complete, but yeah, it felt like it was getting to be a little bit too much and a little too long. I think this game is cool, and if you want a 2-player co-op game to play with somebody, and you both like puzzle games, this is a pretty good one. The art style is really pretty. Like, it's a good looking game. It functions really well. Like, I don't have any complaints about, there's no pop in or any real janky bits or anything like that. It's just a little too long for my liking.
Yeah, I get.
I'm gonna put it in. This is fine. Like, it's a perfectly reasonable game.
Yeah, especially for like $2 if you can get it at 90%.
Yeah, that's a very reasonable price for it. Like, don't pay $20 for this game. Get it on sale. Cool. That's our video games for this episode.
Yeah, a bit long list, but a pretty fun challenge. Do you have any closing thoughts on this round of $20 that you did?
My only closing thoughts would be that I think I should have bought a couple of games that were a little bit more expensive instead of trying to go like for quantity. Oh, excuse me. Instead of going for quantity, I should have gone for quality maybe a little bit more. I could have dropped a couple of these games, I think, and maybe bought a couple other games that I was looking at that were in like the $4 to $5 range. So if we do this again, I think that might be the goal. And then there were 2 other games that I bought that I'm still going to play for the podcast that I just didn't have time to get to, that I thought I was going to have time to get to. And one of them is a Metroidvania, and the other one is a survival crafting game.
Okay.
And
that sounds interesting.
Yeah. The Metroidvania is Teslagrad 2. Which those games are supposed to be pretty good. They're supposed to be like pretty mid-tier Metroidvania style games. And then I bought the Survivalist, which is a pixel art survival game. And I'm a sucker for a survival crafting game. So
cool.
What about you? Any closing thoughts for this experiment?
Yeah, it was my first time doing that, and I actually had a great time. Like, I didn't think I would like Cybertrash so much, and even if I wasn't doing this challenge, I don't think I would have bought Capybarski because it just looked goofy and like a Donkey Kong Country ripoff, a quick cash grab. But I gave it a shot because I had to spend $20 anyway, and I was like, yeah, I like platformers, and actually it was a super decent time. So I think being forced to buy and play some games, I actually managed to find good things in the midst of the thousands of games that were released. So, yeah,
right.
It was a very fun challenge, and we should do that again in 6 months or something. I think it was a fun episode.
Yeah, I think so too. We'll definitely revisit this idea again at a later point down the road. All right, hobby time. Max, I did not do any hobby anything over the last 2 weeks.
You were too busy.
Right?
I need to like a roguelike, I bet.
Yeah, between video games and work and life, I just didn't have time to really work on anything. So it happens.
It happens. That's fine. I'm going to cover for you. So my first hobby is my long-running team of trying to find the right paper to make some cards, and I lost so much time. So, full disclosure, I lost my job in the past week or so, and I was on. Anyway, it's not really sad. It's all fine, and I already was on vacation time at that time, so that's good. But yeah, I spent a whole day trying to make a plastic coating work on my paper, and the thing is, when it works, it's perfect. Like, The cards feel great. They look great. There's just the right amount of sturdiness to them. It's superb, but I don't have the right machine to do it. Like, I tried for a whole day to make it work with what I have for my laminating machine, but I can do it. The plastic is too thin, and when I try to laminate my paper, it just wrinkles randomly in some places because the weight gets stuck in the rollers and everything. So that sucks. So I was gonna just abandon the idea of using that for my paper and just use plain photo paper, even if it's a little sticky and you can kind of feel the ink under your finger, but it's good enough. But I just realized that the paper cutter that I bought for like $100 just fucking sucks. So it's a roller cutter, and you put your paper under it and you roll, and it's fine. But it's use a cutting mat under it, which is like a plastic bar. And the more you cut, the more of a groove that appears in the cutting mat. And after like 10 sheet or something, the groove is too big and it starts to just rip the paper when I cut it. So I cut it and it's not clean, and I see the ink being cut also on the edges, and that sucks because I don't understand it. That system just doesn't work. I guess it can work if you're just like cutting paper for like white paper for a job and just having to do smaller paper and just cut the edge or something. But for me, doing full print with thick paper and wanting it to be super clean, it doesn't work. And I'm mad that I lost money on that. I found like the right cutter paper that I would need for this kind of cut that I want to do, like clean cuts. And it's another kind of roller cutter, but it costs like $200. And yeah, like I said, I lost my job, so I don't know if I should be spending $200 in my hobby.
Right.
At least I'm not considering buying the $500 machine to do the laminating that I want to do. But yeah, I will probably buy the other paper cutter once I get my final pay, and as a gift, as a Christmas gift for myself, and I will be able to do my cards, hopefully with a decent quality once I get that new cutter. But yeah, it was just disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. It was a very bad day.
You could always sell the other one also, like just knock 20% off of it. You know, if it costs 100, sell it for 80. It's barely been used, but it is used. Somebody will buy it.
Yeah, surely. I'm gonna do something like that and put it on marketplace. So I will recoup the cost probably. And also, between last episode and this episode, it was my birthday. And
happy birthday.
Hey, thank you. And I started a tradition 2 years ago of doing some kind of weird food for my birthday. So 2 years ago, I did a corn dog cake, between air quotes. So basically, I bought a box of 30 corn dogs, and I cut like the round part at the end, and I put the 30 corn dogs upside down. So it's like it had 30 candles for my 30th birthday. And I put everything else around it, put some ketchup and mustard and fries around it. So it really looked like the cake. And I tried to do like, a confetti popper with some ketchup powder for popcorn. And it didn't work because the powder was too heavy. So it just like, it was very sad. But I tried it. It was pretty fun. Last year I did the poutine fountain fondue. So like chocolate fondue with those fountain. I bought 3 fountains on Marketplace, and instead of putting chocolate, I put gravy in those. And you could use your fries and all your toppings and put them in hot sauce every time you had a new bite. So that was also pretty fun. And this year I did what I called the Sugar Shack Sushis. So are you familiar with the Sugar Shack concept? I don't know if it's
no, I am not.
Okay, so basically here during maple season in the spring, there's the Sugar Shack buffets that they call. And basically you go there, it plays old-timey music, and you eat everything dunked in maple syrup. So sausages, ham, potatoes, eggs. It's just a lot of like breakfast food, but with full maple syrup in it. It's a great
The most Canadian thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's super good. It's super fun. Everything dressed like lumberjacks. It's a great time. So I basically took all those ingredients and I made sushis out of them. But instead of being kind of disgusting with algae and rice, I replaced the algae with pancakes, very thin pancakes. That I colored green, and I replaced the rice with oatmeal, but not real, not oatmeal. I just don't know with buckwheat.
Okay.
Basically. So it's kind of sticky too. It worked really well. And then I garnished all my pancakes with that fake rice and sausages, hams, potatoes, eggs, and you would I made little rolls like sushis, and you just dump them into maple mayo and maple syrup, and it was fucking good. It was like the best thing. It was really amazing. I took some of them and rolled them into a Pillsbury dough and put that in the oven, and also I put some sugar pies in the sushis. So when I took them out, there was like this layer of crust, and you bite into it, and it was just gooing of hot maple butter. It was fantastic. So it was a total success. I tried something wild, and it was soup.
Excellent. I want to take a step back for a second. You said that you think the algae in sushi is gross. Do you not like sushi?
No, I love it. I just don't think it would have worked with like sausages and hams and and maple syrup. That's just I think it's a combination of everything that's been weird. So I use something else.
Okay. Yeah. No. That combination definitely would have been weird. I just wanted to, because
yeah.
I was just thinking like, do you not like sushi? Because you were saying that it's like not great. I'm like, all right. Just want to clarify.
Yeah. That's been gross in the context.
Okay.
Great clarification. I love sushi.
All right, cool. Let's go on to loot box then. I've got a few things for the loot box today. I'm gonna start with a channel called Marble, and this video popped onto my recommendation feed at like right after we recorded our last podcast, and I had a blast with it. It's called Every Softlock in Portal. So he essentially went through all of the first Portal game and showed where the devs like put things to prevent the game from being soft locked, and then he found ways to bypass all of those to figure out ways to actually soft lock yourself in Portal. Which is a very interesting like look behind the curtain of how games, or how specifically Portal works. So it was very, very cool. Still on the game. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, do you know the channel Pika Spray?
No.
Well, it's a guy and does this kind of thing, but with the old Pokemon games, and he shows like ridiculous soft locks that you can make in those games by swapping some Pokemons and being in certain situations. So if you get a kick of this video, I think you should check him out. It's the same concept.
Okay. Yeah, I'll check that out. And Marble, he does a lot of stuff like this where he kind of goes into games and finds ways to break them. So it's interesting to get that kind of look behind the curtain into like what's actually going on under the surface of video games. And then on the gaming front, still yesterday I found a video by a creator called KatyMay. Her video was I crashed every Zelda game as fast as possible. So this is kind of doing the same sort of thing, except in this case, she was doing speed run crashes. So trying to get to a crash state in every Zelda literally as fast as she could. In some of the Zelda games, that can be like a matter of seconds to where the game is just non-functional anymore. It was a pretty interesting video. She even went to a Target and crashed their Breath of the Wild, like, what do you call it when they have the like demo machine in a retail store?
Yeah.
She found a way to crash their Switch, which it doesn't like brick the Switch or anything, but she found a way to break Breath of the Wild within the like 20-minute demo time that you have at one of those kiosks. So, yeah, that was also pretty interesting. And I've not watched more of her content, but I'm definitely going to. She's a Zelda speedrunner, so it's a lot of Zelda content on her channel.
So cool.
And then final thing is a channel called Goobertown Hobbies. The video is called How Models and Minis Are Made. Goobertown Hobbies, primarily, he's a hobby YouTuber. He talks primarily about painting minis and Warhammer and other tabletop war games and stuff of that nature. In this video, he went to a I don't remember the name of the studio, but there's a small production company that makes models in different resins and metals for small print run model making. They're like a subcontractor for other companies that need small print runs of models for their games. And so he just kind of goes through how these different types of models are made, from, like I said, pewter minis to the different types of resin minis and whatnot. And it's interesting to see that, for me personally, just because I deal with a lot of different types of models. And the only thing that company does not do is injection molding, which is a lot of what the large manufacturers do. But if you're interested in how injection molding works, which would be like anything Warhammer or Bandai with their Gunpla, all of that stuff is made entirely the same way, and it's extremely expensive to make the dies for injection molding. So this small company does not have the money to front, $50,000 on a CNC machine to be able to make the extremely precise dies that you need for injection molding.
Yeah.
But that's it for me. A little bit more than what I would normally bring, but I found some interesting stuff that I wanted to shout out. I found more stuff too. I could have shot out like 10 videos this time. I was like, that's probably too much.
Yeah. We're going to keep them for future episodes.
Yeah.
They're coming around. Oh, okay. Yeah. On my side, I'm going to shout out a bigger YouTuber, but at the same time, I think he really popped off at the beginning of the year. I think last year was mostly unknown, and he's called Reid. And he has a pretty great series right now where he tries to find the best chicken wings in America, and he goes to every state and tries like the 2 best places and ranking them on the chart, and it is truly analytical. But the video I'm bringing today, and released it like 2 weeks ago, it's called I Tried the Free Breakfast at 10 Hotels to Find the Best One. And it's the same kind of thing. He goes super analytical in very mundane stuff. So he booked 10 breakfasts in the cheapest ranges of hotel, like mid and low range hotels. So like hotels that most people use. And he tried to find the best bang for your buck and what you can get in those hotels. If there's hot food, no hot food, and barely anything. And yeah, it's a very fun video. If you like statistics and you want to learn a bit more about where you can get great breakfast, it's a fun ride. He's super charming, and yeah, I understand why he popped off. He takes his videos very seriously, but with a hint of, I don't want to reuse charm, but it feels very sincere. It feels like he has a really good time, and it's his own ideas, and he's just doing that because he thinks it's fun.
Yeah, he's great. I've seen some of his videos. He's good. Yeah.
Cool. And my second shout out is Capybarski, and his channel is One Big Series, and it relates a little bit to what we do because he goes into arcades and he reviews every arcade machine, but for people that try to get tickets. So if you want to go in those arcades to gain tickets to buy some of the prizes, he reviews those machines. He tries to find all the documentation he can find so you can know the different type of settings that this machine could be on, what's the maximum jackpot and minimum jackpot that the arcade owners can set those machines to. And then he says if there's any strategies and if there's not, and then he ranks all of them in a big tier list. So every video he adds a machine or two on the tier lists. And his latest video was on the Deal or No Deal arcade machine, which is exactly like a game of Deal or No Deal. And yeah, I don't really recommend that video in particular, but the old channel. I think it's super fun. It's a very unique take on a gaming video. I've never seen any other channel like that, and he's great at what he does, and he loves what he do. So yeah,
Cool. That sounds great.
yeah. And his videos are super short too. Like they're all like 5 to 10 minutes at most. So it's very bingeable. You can just go ahead and listen to a bunch of arcade videos and learn a lot. Like there's a lot of machines that I never knew about. Yeah, it's a fun time.
Cool. I might check that out today because I'm grinding on an RPG right now. Well, I mean, not physically right now while we're talking, but I've been grinding on an RPG that I started last night, and that's the kind of game where, I could just have something on in the background while doing that. So definitely gonna check that out for sure. Awesome, good stuff.
Good. And before we get to emails, do we reveal our plans for the next episode?
Yeah, sure. So on our next episode, it is our plan to do our Game of the Year episode, and we haven't fully figured out exactly what we're doing, but we'll be talking about like some of our favorite games from various different categories. We'll have all that worked out.
Well, not just go
by the time next.
top heavy. We'll go. It's gonna be top heavy. It's gonna be our favorite games, but we'll try to do our own little spin on it and find some fun categories to talk about, and not just try to find the 10 best games that we played this year.
Right, exactly. And then I would like to mention for myself also, if you don't mind, on the 14th of December, which this episode will be out before then, but our next episode will not be out by then. On the 14th of December, on my Twitch page, twitch.tv/Hobbies, I will be doing my Game of the Year stream, where I don't play a whole lot of modern games. I don't play a lot of games that were released in the current year. So what I've done for the last several years is I take every game that I've beaten and every game that I've played throughout the year, and I tier list all of them while drinking far too much fucking scotch.
Nice.
And it's always a fun time. It's always fun. It's always really, really enjoyable for me to do that stream. I would love for everybody to come out and hang out. I'll post on the Blue Sky and the Twitter, and what time I'm going to end up doing that. It'll probably be around 5 p.m. Central Time that way, because it's going to take me many hours to go through the games. I currently have, I think, about 110 games on my spreadsheet that I have, and that's like 105 games that I've beaten, plus a bunch of games that I sunk a bunch of time into that I have not beaten, and it will not include most of the Sega CD trash that I talked about, because there's no sense in me tier listing, games that I spent 5 minutes with. But a lot of that Sega CD, or some of those Sega CD games that I put more time into, like Space Adventure Cobra and Vi, those will also be thrown into the tier list along with every other game that I've played this year. Should be fun. I think this might be the biggest year that I've had.
Ooh, that's exciting.
So yeah, I think it's going to end up turning out to be like 130 games, something like that, to talk about. It's going to be a lot.
I'm pretty hyped. I'm gonna try to tune in for sure.
Excellent.
And I have one last thing that I want to say before we read our email of the week is that I received a couple games from people in the last few weeks. So I received a game from Mr. Mo because we started the podcast. Thanks, Mr. Mo. I've also received a game. I don't have your name, sorry, but I will say it when I talk about this game. I received a game from someone who listened to Indie Quest. It's a dev that made a game, and he gifted me his game after I went on Indie Quest as a host, as a guest host. So I'm gonna play, and I received also a game from. I'm so bad. I should have written that down, but I have it. I received a game from Moonwatcher V3, which is a friend from our friend Go Hopo Go. I'm not sure why. I don't know if you're listening to the podcast right now, but he gifted me Koromon on Steam, which I had on my wish list. I don't know if he gave it to me because it was my birthday or for fun or because he listened to our stuff, but I received a game. All that to say that I will be playing those games for our next real episode. So next time I'm going to bring games that people have gifted me. So I'm going to talk about that in the future episode. So if you gifted me games, it's coming to the podcast pretty soon.
Awesome.
Do you want to join read the Rob's email so I can interact with you? Because he's talking about a game we asked him to play.
So email from Robert from the Classic Gaming Podcast, which we will be on. Well, we'll be recording here in a couple of days, the both of us. There's going to be 4 of us. We're going to be talking about video games. It's probably going to go long. I'm not going to lie. Rob already goes long in his podcast anyway, so.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time. So if you don't have enough of us, we're going to be on the Classic Gaming Podcast in a couple days.
Yeah. So he says, hey guys, I know we'll be discussing this on CGP, but for those who don't catch you over there, I thought I should write my thoughts about Star Wars Yoda's story, which Max invited me to play along with him. I'll try to be brief. He's probably discussed it by this point in the episode, which you didn't.
I didn't. I kept it for the email.
That's fine. But we ended up playing the Game Boy Color version, and it's probably the top 20 worst game of all time for me. The entire premise of the game is just to go around doing random things until you find keys, items, etc. in random places. Sure, some of them do make sense, like you might see a wrecked vehicle and inspect it to get an item, but many of the items just involve moving random chests around to find stuff underneath them. This is a huge ask. On the first level, I'm going to make a ballpark estimate that there are 75 or so chests in various places around the map, and the game design is just guess where on the whole map this thing is. It's extremely boring, and after an hour or so, I actually couldn't take it anymore.
I'm going to add a bit of my grain of salt on that because in each level, because the game is like 15 fucking levels, but in each level, you get a locator, and the locator will tell you in which screens there are things to do and what those things are. So if there's a square that requires you to find something, it will tell you find a valuable. But if there's a square that says requires a valuable, then you know that you won't find anything there, but you will have to bring something there to give to someone else. So yes, there's a lot of random things to move and stuff, but in those squares where there's nothing indicated, there's no reason to move the boxes around. You won't find anything valuable. You will just find maybe crap food to trade for medicine, but that's really not required to be the game.
Okay. He goes on. Terrible game. On top of the gameplay, the movement feels weird, the combat is extremely rudimentary, and the soundtrack is bad. Max, make sure you talk about the music if you haven't already. It's just bad.
Okay, I'm going to touch on all those points. Yes, the movement is so weird. So it's a top-down perspective on a grid, and it's a bit like tank gameplay in the sense that if you're looking up and you press once on the left, you will turn to look left, and then you have to press a second time on the left to move. So that is already kind of annoying. But the weirdest stuff, I don't think any other game ever did that, is that if you go straight and there's something in front of you, but there's a clear space on the left or on the right, you will go diagonally while looking up, so the game doesn't block you. So if you just hold the up button, you will just like go in diagonals all the way and zip around and go around corners. It's so confusing at first.
Okay.
Like
that sounds terrible.
Yeah, that's terrible. But they also use that to make kind of interesting puzzles at little levels. Like Rob only played for an hour or so. I think I might be like on hour 5 or 6 in this game. And in those later levels, like level 4 and 5, there are a couple of puzzles where you cannot move in certain ways because you can only push and pull blocks straight left or right, but you can move diagonally. So there are a couple sections where you have to figure out how to move the boxes and go around and zip around sections to move those boxes. That's not much, but at least that's something. The combat is dumb. It's like Zelda style where you can attack one block in front of you, but when you attack, you cannot move. But the enemies just zip around and move super fast from square to square, and they won't stop if they get hit, and there's no visual feedback that they get hit. So the best strategy is just to stay in one place and spam the attack button until the enemies are destroyed or killed when you have to kill those enemies. And the soundtrack. The soundtrack is the Star Wars theme on loop forever. It never stops. You open the game, it starts the loop, and between levels, the loop continues. In the start menu, the loop continues. The loop never stops. And the worst part of it, it's not right. It goes da, 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 is off key every time. So you just listen to Star Wars in 8-bit on loop, and it's fucking off key. It's stupid. It's probably the worst soundtrack ever made, if you can call it a soundtrack. And the game, like I said, if I beat the game, it would take me like something like 12-15 hours, and it's just 15 hours of the same loop over and over again. And that last part, it's also kind of irritating because it goes like it does a weird vibration sound. But if I leave the music on while I play to get the full experience, and at some points you kind of start to forget the melody and just focus at the bass line. And the bass line is kind of good.
Okay. All right. Rob goes on. I will at least admit that there are two unintentionally funny parts. I got a big kick out of the intro to the first level. The big scrolling Star Wars text starts the level, just like in the movies, to tell you the backstory of what's going on, and the top line simply says hello, which is hilarious, honestly. Maybe you just have to see it, but I thought it was hilarious. Also, I was using a walkthrough for the first level, and I just copy-paste a line from the walkthrough right here. And it says, quote, "In here, defeat the enemies and give the bounty hunter 10,000 credits to make Han Solo appear in your inventory as an item."
Yep, that's true. You have to go to the Millennium Falcon, and you have to put Han Solo in the ship for him to actually get to the ship.
Okay. He says, unfortunately, those two parts alone do not elevate the game to so bad it's good territory. It's simply a boring, boring game. Rob.
Well, I think we're going to have a pretty fun discussion when we go in the Classic Gaming Podcast, because for me, I think it crosses the so bad it's good territory. Everything is fail. Like the movement is bad, the combat is bad. It's just a big list of fetch quests, and the music is the most dumb thing ever. But at the same time, I don't know. The game is kind of consistent. Once you find the locator, the map are simple to follow, and you know which parts of the map you have to do the puzzle, the light puzzle that you have to do. And I don't know, for a old Game Boy game, and if you just have like 15 minutes to kill, it's like you just go around and follow the instructions. You try to find stuff, you talk to people. It's kind of relaxing. There's no stakes, and you just walk around, do a bit of light puzzle, and make fun of the dumb music and the dumb movement and the dumb everything. So the one thing that I don't like is that it's fucking long. Like I've already put like 5 or 6 hours in the game, and I'm only a third of the way through. So that's way too long for that kind of game. But I think I'm having Stockholm syndrome with the game, and I'm actually wanting to play more and see where it goes. And now that I know how the game thinks and where to look and what kind of puzzles to do, it's not as frustrating, and the levels go much quicker because I know I can just go to this part of the map, look around. If I cannot find it, I check a walkthrough and like, oh yeah, there was a pixel off there, and that's where I had to put the blocks. And then I continue on with the game. And I don't know. I think I think it would go back in the trash, but I would give it my trash award where it's so bad. It's kind of fun. It's kind of relaxing.
Okay. I can see like liking that style of a game as a kid, just because like, you know, you when you're a kid and you had a Game Boy back in the early 90s, you probably only had like 5 games. So this would be one that you could consistently come back to, and it's not going to be like terribly challenging and like the puzzles are always going to be, it sounds like they're fairly the same kind of puzzles throughout most of the game. So like you can pick up and play for 30 minutes while you're, you know, on the car ride to grandma's house, and then play it for 30 minutes on the car ride back, and then play your Super Nintendo while you're at home. So you're only getting it in these little 30-minute bursts, and you get to play this one game for like 3 months instead of beating the game in, you know, 2 weeks and then being disappointed that the Game Boy game that your mom spent $50 on is now beaten, and you have to start it over again. So
Exactly. Yeah. The one thing, the bad thing is that it's very rough around the edges, like the movement and everything. But I don't know. I like bad games, I think.
yeah. I wouldn't see myself playing something like this like all the way through nowadays, but I can see the merits of it, you know, in the 90s. So
Yeah, exactly. And also I have it on my phone on an emulator, so if I'm just waiting in a room for my daughter to change or anything, I can just pop in for 5 minutes and do a puzzle anywhere. So it's a fun time kill. That's what I would say. Maybe not fun, but fine.
it's a fine time killer. All right. Well, we would like to thank Heath Aldrich for our intro and outro music. You can find a link to all of his music on his Bandcamp page at heathaldrich.bandcamp.com.
And we would also like to thank Rainbow Savvy Design for our logo. Links to both of their works will be available in the show notes.
And you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Scotch and Hobbies. I stream Mondays and Wednesdays around 5 to 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. And you can also find me on social media, Scotch and Hobbies.
Yeah, if you want to play some of my games, you can check my itch.io page at itch.io/Potomax. Otherwise, you can see what I'm playing on Blue Sky at Potomax. And if you speak French, I have a ton of videos on the good old YouTube at youtube.com/Jeubière. And I even have a new video on Sea of Stars that was where I received the game from Sabotage Studio directly. So that's pretty cool. And I'm talking also the place of Quebec French in video games.
Cool. Very cool. And if you want to follow the podcast, we are at The Trash Station on all the social media platforms, and I mostly have been on Blue Sky these days instead of the cesspool that is Twitter.
Exactly. We're all moving to Blue Sky. So if you want to follow us, maybe the Twitter won't be as active in the following months.
Yep. And that's gonna do it, Max. This was fun.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do that again sometime soon. Maybe
For sure.
soon, but somewhat soon.
Yeah, maybe next year sometime.
Yeah, exactly.